It's interesting. I wrote a caption yesterday on Instagram, and I feel like that was the energy of the summer for me, was being faced with so many things that, is what brought you into my life, was facing the same thing in a very different way that I was very vividly, I don't even want to say up against. It was just like so much clarity came through this summer. And I was walking on the beach and I just felt this, like almost like the wind and the breeze from the waves like taking me. And I was like, I just officially want to set myself free of this energy of toxic behavior that I allow and I continually just accept.
Right.
And it feels really good to be able to acknowledge, right, where you're holding yourself back. And I think that is what you have done for me, you do for so many people, is being able to see where the limitations are.
Yeah, absolutely. They're ironically the access to freedom, right? So I was on a show a couple of days ago and I was saying, like, our fears are the beacons that light the path to freedom. Meaning, so the limitations and the concerns that we have that most people try to mitigate or ignore or numb out or escape, it's actually that's the access to the liberation that we want. So it's sort of a little bit of a catch-22 where you don't want to experience like the adversities and the discomforts, but they're the gifts to show you where you're not free.
Oh, it's so painful. It hurts. Like, it's so hard to be with it.
Yeah. No, I get it. But it's much harder to stay there.
Ooh.
So, it's just unfortunate today. We have so many forms of escape, right? Like in substances and distractions and whatever it is that people find some sort of relief in. But so it looks like, for a short time, you're mitigating some of the suffering, but you're just perpetuating it.
Right.
And I think that's why when you understand it and you look at the journey of being human through that different lens of like, okay, if it's not about raising a family and getting followers and making money and being successful and hopefully living a long life, but really we're here as souls to emancipate ourselves from our constraints and recontextualize the whole journey, then all of a sudden it's like, well, hang on a minute. Wherever there is discomfort, wherever there is struggle or fear, or I'm being triggered by something, that is actually now seen as the opportunity, not something to avoid. So it sort of changes the playing field a bit.
So how do you, when, I can imagine just the countless and endless, just like personalities and people who come to you and do your coaching program, and you even have online coaching now, and you're doing these incredible seminars. My favorite thing when I'm talking to someone, because I feel as if people don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
And it's like, you come in with the stuff, and some are self-aware, some are not, right? But at least there's a step that's being taken to know that there's something that needs to be worked on, right?
Yeah.
Where do you begin with someone? Like, what is that starting point and being able to really see yourself, your thoughts? I think people walk around so unaware of what's going on up here.
Yeah, oblivious.
And I certainly was for so many years.
No, we all have. And I was at the US Open yesterday, as I was telling you, with one of the best athletes of all time, and we were talking about how most humans, or at least I was sharing, are just in a state of sort of automatic reaction. Because if you're oblivious, then we're really just being driven by our conditioning. So stimulus response. Somebody says something that, triggers something inside of you at a deep subconscious level. You have a reaction, some sort of emotion, but it's not a conscious choice. So first place I start is typically presence, is just to hold space and to let somebody know that they're safe. Because that's the primordial need for any human being, particularly the feminine, but the masculine in different ways. But for the most part, if you understand the dynamic of what it is to be human, you're in a mild to severe state of fight or flight consistently, because again, I write quotes. And so I say, as long as you think yourself to be a separate self, you have no choice but to survive. Right. So if the illusion of who you are is separate, which it is, because you're looking through your own unique equipment of mind and body, nobody can look through Melissa's eyes. And so it gives the occurrence of you're separate to the whole. So that means then that you naturally have to do whatever you have to do to make it, right? To get loved, to get accepted, to be, guarded or against any potential threats. So the place to start with any kind of work for anybody is they have to feel safe. So that's always where at least I want to consciously hold a container. They might not understand what's going on, but even though I'm sitting next to a person on a flight, right? I'm about to jump on a plane and go across to Europe, and I've been on so many flights where I'm sitting next to somebody, and just because of the absence of judgment, which again is one of the sort of built-in factory settings of a human being, we tend to look through a lens of this isn't it, that's not right. We have the almighty audacity to think we know how things should be. And that creates a lot of conflict. But if in the absence of that, then somebody can feel that energetically. They might not be conscious of it, but so many times people have gotten off a flight and they're like, dude, like, who are you? Like, I just told you shit that I've never told my wife or my husband. And that is obviously, it's complimentary, but it's really a reflection of where someone has a safe space to speak into, which really is what, if you understand the nature of prayer, for example, like how many people on the planet, typically when they're in a state of adversity, lean into prayer. And whether they have a strong faith or they were raised in a particularly religious family or not, it's really irrelevant. But what they're experiencing is at least this sense of safety, is where I would assert what prayer really is that even in the quietude of their own mind, they're able to share something that they're dealing with without the feeling of potential ramifications, judgment, criticism, being shut down, being dismissed, being rejected. So that's where I like to start, is it's okay. Whatever you're dealing with, it's okay. I can hear it.
Where did this interest begin for you?
I think probably coming up against my own constraints, and realizing that I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was walking around oblivious to my own deep fears and concerns, and all of which were totally, to be understood, from parents dying when I was young and being orphaned by 17 and things that no one would begrudge me for, like the fear of loss,
Yeah. Both of your parents?
Both parents, yeah. My mom when I was 7 and my dad when I was 17. So I think, once I saw my own patterns, I think more than anything, the way that it had impacted my life to the detriment, not like I lived a horrible life, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting when you're walking around trying to constantly protect yourself or avoid worst case scenarios. Or as I say, most people are trying to avoid a bad future that hasn't happened yet, And so if you just understand the dynamics of that, you start to see why people need to drink or they need to smoke weed or they need some sort of medication, because the same human brain is projecting a worst case scenario, typically of a future, and then the brain that created that, imagined it, is now trying to do everything to avoid it, forgetting that it made it up.
Say it again, because that will
right.
Say exactly what are people trying to avoid?
So it's all unconscious, but the brain, designed to predict and protect, is projecting typically as a reflection of past hurt. So again, I say past hurt informs future fear. So we've all been through trials and tribulations, disappointments, failures, heartbreak. And so the brain then amasses all of this, accumulates the evidence for why you should be concerned about a future that might replicate that, right? So you're imagining typically worst case scenarios, which we call the future, which is completely fictitious. You're never in the future. It's just a conversation. But, right, so then we get really deep. So
yes,
when is the future happening now? But it's as a projection of something that you think could happen. So the one brain that's imagining that is now then, because of the concerns, which creates an emotional reaction, typically of anxiety, fear, worry, and anticipation, is now thinking, okay, shit, how do I avoid that from happening? Forgetting that it made up the potentiality of it. And then you start to understand why people are fucking exhausted and nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, when I saw that whole matrix of the madness of the subconscious mind and what it means to be human and how we always try to survive, it was just relief. I'm like, why would I put myself through that consistently?
Right.
Yeah.
Through just self-torture.
Yeah.
Because that's really what limitations are, right?
That's what they lead to, yeah, the perception of limitations. So the sort of way that I've refined my work now, which I think you'd find fascinating, is really delineating these two distinct worlds, right? So the world that we're born into, it's sort of a blind prison that everyone is born into just by virtue of being human. The dimension of planet Earth is fundamentally that you arrive as a timeless, boundless, limitless being, just confined by these subconscious narratives of I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, I'm not safe, I'm not wanted, whatever it is. It's normally a not, a negation of yourself. And then you go about your life and hopefully you get triggered enough that you start to realize that those are actually fictitious and you break out of them. And that to me is the game of being human. But most people don't, because now we've got all these different ways of escaping. So we arrive limitless, pure potentiality, looking through a lens of constraint. That's limitation. That gives the predominant emotion of fear, which is what most people live in, that then gives the overarching experience of suffering. Mm-hmm. Suffering then, because it's through the cascade of our nervous system into our physiology, will eventually over time lead into disease, which is the extension of dis-ease, the absence of ease, which then will manifest in relationships as dysfunction and disharmony, and in your finances and your career as scarcity and lack. That's the system we have, right? Yeah. And then, do the best you can and get by and good luck and I'm getting there and the whole game of being human. And hopefully you've got good resources and you can get some help, or you make your discomfort more comfortable, right? If you've got funds, you can take suffering and package it a little bit with cotton wool and it doesn't seem so bad. And, but the guy downstairs who's in a bar smoking Marlboro Light and drinking a bud is really not that different than a guy smoking a Cuban cigar and drinking Cristal champagne, right? Just the means of escape is just a little bit more expensive.
It's packaged a little different.
Yeah. And so that's one world. That's the default world. And what I'm passionate about in my work is revealing is this completely second paradigm, completely different. It's not improving the one we're in. It's a completely new one. Like Buckminster Fuller had a great quote, which I'll paraphrase probably terribly, but it's something like, you don't make change by trying to change the existing reality. To make real change, you build a completely new model that makes the current existing reality obsolete. Mm. So rather than trying to improve people's lives, I introduce them to this second world, which is in the absence of limitation, is freedom, right? That's my main product. But then when you have a sense of freedom, it elicits, rather than fear, a sense of joy and love. And then you start to go from suffering to a sense of newfound possibility in your health. Instead of dis-ease, you go into vitality. And then instead of dysfunction, you go into affinity and intimacy. Instead of scarcity, you step into abundance. Last I checked, that's a better choice.
Yeah.
So, yes.
It's the getting there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the deconditioning, because, like someone like myself, like listening to everything you're saying. Mm-hmm. I mean, by the way, I saw myself in every version that I was like, oh, that was me. Oh my God, this is me. Oh my God, that was me.
Yeah.
This is me now. It's so amazing to be able to step back and see your own growth and evolution from believing all of those things were true because it happened to you. That's what you lived through. That's your parents' beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. And then getting to this place of really being able to, I feel I'm in this place now where I see it very clearly, even in myself. Maybe if I'm showing up with limitations or allowing thoughts and fears to hold me. And, I'm working through that stuff daily still.
You're still human?
Yes. I am. We're all still freaking human.
Absolutely.
But it's when you're also just like the product of that energy and environment and still maintaining relationships with people in that mindset.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it ain't easy. Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah, that's probably the number one question I get from people who've done my courses, been through my mastermind typically more than once, because they just realize, wow, this is it, right? It's not about, as I said, getting more followers, making more money, getting six-pack abs and having the right person or whatever next year. It's like about being free, like truly breaking free from the constraints with which we arrived. And so when people go through the work, and I just did a retreat in Malibu for people who've been through my masterminds, a full weekend, and just the energy there was palpable in terms of it's unique, it's different. There's a love, there's a safety, there's an acceptance where I sort of have this triumvirate of what I want people to feel, which is that they're seen, heard, and held. And when somebody really embodies that and reflects that, it's a very unique experience versus walking around the streets here of New York. You know, it's a stereotype, I know, but you kind of have to have your wits about you a little bit, right? Like you can't just be walking around oblivious as though you're like in some sort of kumbaya heavenly space. You know, there's a lot of potential dangers and threats out there.
Right.
And so that to me is one of the reflections I get, is how unique this space is, but also how difficult it is to be able to navigate knowing something, but still having family, friends, people you care about who are still in the old dimension of suffering. You know, and first request is, how can I help them? You know, like it's like you see people you care about and you love, and you don't want them to suffer. You don't want them to be on medication. You don't want them to have anxiety or suicidal ideations or fights with the wife or divorce or all of the things. And it's tough because you can't, until somebody's ready to have those conversations, the brain's wired to defend itself.
Right.
Because again, if we're in a state of survival, then anything that comes across as instructional or like any kind of, you should do this or try this, like typically we all like, we don't want to hear it. Like it's like we want to be the sovereign beings making our own choices. So we don't typically respond well to people telling us how to live our lives.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yes.
I think the most powerful thing that I had this moment recently where really just, I don't want to say for the first time, but having a situation happen that rocked me to my core and made me feel everything in my life that I have been working towards not being my reality and my body anymore, right?
Okay.
And then having that all come from a situation and not reacting.
Okay.
And not responding to the person wanting to suck me into the spiral of their storm.
And drama,
And I have to say, it was one of the most challenging things I've faced in my life because of the magnitude of the situation and with the person. But I like, even thinking about, I can like feel my body.
Yeah.
I just sat in it.
Can I ask what would have been the sort of Melissa 1.0 version? That's okay.
Oh, like
okay.
To unleash.
Right. With like frustration, anger,
sadness. And it was so painful.
Right.
To like be in it.
Yeah.
And to not write the response back that I did write, but I didn't send.
Okay, yeah. So you did the exercise for yourself, which is healthy. Yeah. So you got to express, but.
And I have to. And I've like realized that in my process. I'm sure we all have a different process, right? I'm not so sure. Is there one way of coping with chaos?
Yeah.
But being able to like see it, feel it, and sit with it, was. I'm so proud.
Yeah, good job.
I know. I was like, okay, you can do it. Like, and then I meditated hard. Like I was like, just drop in to yourself. And then I moved my body. It was almost as if I was like energetically forced into a flow. It was the craziest thing. I was like on our terrace we were traveling and my body just moved. And then I was so reminded, I felt this bliss of, this is why I am so devoted to this work and sharing this, because it's so painful when you are in it, and even not responding is so painful.
It's still a response, right? Like in terms of your own physiology. Can I ask, were there any things that you recall, like where that initial, so this seems like an isolated unit, right? And you don't have to go into the details,
Yeah.
but somebody sounds like sent you an email or text or something, triggered your response. Did it remind you of something from when you were younger? Or
for sure.
Yeah. And
from the person that did it. It just brought me right back home.
Okay.
But, well, that is no longer my home.
Yeah. Okay. Energetically, literally, emotionally.
Everything.
Yeah.
But it's so familiar, and it's...
Can I ask, what was the overarching, like if there were a way of describing it, like what was the persecution that you were experiencing? Because it's like a threat, right?
It was a threat. The person didn't like the way that I did something.
Okay. Yeah.
And then lashed out at me.
Okay.
In public, and then over messages.
Yeah. Okay.
And then isolated and silenced me.
Okay, got it. And so what did that bring to the surface for you? Like, what was your experience in that space?
First, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
Like,
so self-doubt, like, what did I did
totally.
Something wrong.
And I was like the way that I did that. And and I own my stuff. Like, you know, I'm very aware that I can be sharp, that I'm firm, that I'm direct. I'm a boss. Like, I take care of things. I move efficiently.
Yeah.
Maybe the way in which something was handled wasn't to the liking of the other person, and I own that wholeheartedly. But it just sent me into that immediate spiral of, first of all, I can't believe this is happening where it was happening. And then it was just like being a 7-year-old little girl who's being reprimanded for the way that I
behaved.
Yeah.
So you did something wrong, something bad.
Right.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, that doesn't feel good, right? When we're being judged or criticized. Yeah. And so, where else have you seen that come up before in different, maybe not so extreme cases that you've managed to navigate?
Oh, yeah. Like all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like with my children, with my husband, with maybe if something at work. Like, you know, I think when you grow up in a household that is so reactive, abusive, emotionally, physically, it is so ingrained.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like we're back in session number, you know, like this is why I came to you when I first of all, I was like, mind architect, like, yes, architect my freaking mind. Like, let's knock this fucker down and start from the ground up, because it really is that going under the hood. And that understanding. And in that situation too, it was just, you know, it was like a crumble of, oh my God, all the, you know, I internally did spiral. I didn't share that reaction. Because I had to sit with my own stuff. And I think that is the thing that I'm the most proud of with this work of being able to see your stuff and to see yourself.
Make a choice.
To make a choice. And I chose not to enter the storm.
Good for you. And I would say, like, the powerful way to also be able to integrate this is, that's what I call residual self-image, right? So it's the old version of you that has still got a nervous system that's wired to look out for potential threats. This is obviously a big one, that why I asked if there's some sort of semblance that, you know, you can recall events in your childhood where the same thing was said. It sounds
you said
like
you had a flight, so we cannot recall. You will be here for days, sir.
A lot of evidence, right? And that all that does is it just reinforces the narrative or the lens that you look through, right? Like, so there'll be something in there where, you know, what I like to bring it down to is, like, what does that mean about Melissa, right? Like, that you're bad, you're doing something wrong, you're not enough, you're not loved, you're not accepted, something like that, right? And so the way that the brain works is we look through that lens and then we seek evidence or we find evidence for our own perspective. And so this person clearly had some clout. It's not a stranger on the street, right?
Yeah.
It's typically somebody close to us. So that's what we need. That's the beauty of relationships, is that we have to get, beneath the skin to be able to access these things. So there's something there that got triggered that was dormant but still active, right? That you were able to sort of hold on to, not lash out, which is powerful because there's a degree of like dissolution of it at that point, right? So next time something similar happens, hopefully you don't have the same magnitude of reaction, because you realize, oh, in reality, somebody just said something. It's just noise, right? Oof. And that's hard. I know that's not to dismiss the significance of what was said. And I had to work through this myself, especially as Instagram has grown rapidly and there's more people who have.
That one, sorry, took a minute.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Yeah. I mean, if they were saying the same thing in Greek, maybe you speak the same Mandarin, you're like, honey, what? I don't even know what they're saying. Like,
right? Honestly, both.
Yeah. So it's like when you really get that, it's quite fascinating. It's like so many people can relate to the idea of like, oh, I'm just so worried what people think about me, right? Like that's just sort of a common everyday expression. And I point out, no, you're not. You're worried what you think other people think about you, which is still you. So you're really worried what you think about you. So really this whole thing, not maybe too soon,
no,
too soon, but
that is so good.
The person really gifted you something, even though in the moment it feels quite the antithesis, right? Like you want to rip their eyes out and do whatever you want to do. But it's the opportunity to show where you're not free of something. So again, maybe a little soon, but maybe in a couple of days, it'll be like, wow, like that was a teaching moment.
Yeah.
For where, because the lie that you're telling yourself is, I can't be with this. It's the same weird sentence, but your brain is saying, whatever's transpiring, I can't be with that.
That's true.
So, but that's, again, one of my sort of shorter expressions. I say, if it's not life-threatening, it's just ego-threatening. My guess is that's the secondary is what you fell into, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any less in it, but it's your ego was being threatened by something, your image, yeah. And so there's some relief in that though, at least, right? It doesn't in any way mitigate the fact that, you shouldn't have any reaction. You should be walking around like some enlightened being but perhaps it's something to aspire to. And this is like a step in the right direction of like, oh yeah, actually somebody just said something, wrote something. The reaction was all mine. And there's empowerment in that, right? Doesn't justify. I mean, there's people, being beat to shit by parents and abhorrent things happening with abuse in households, to children that I don't have any time for. But usually you get to the point of being an adult and you're still living in the same karmic sort of nervous system reaction to something that finished 20, 30, 40 years ago. So are you the one being abused or are you the one abusing yourself because you still haven't let go of the evidence from your childhood,
Right.
Which I'm not saying is easy, but at least it's the right place to look, right? It's empowering, you're not a victim of life because those reactions are all, you're the effect of something.
Right.
Which leaves, in a very broad statement, you being a victim of something. And that's not how I see you. I see you infinitely powerful as a being who can handle everything.
Thank you. I felt that yesterday on the beach where I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. Like what an opportunity.
Yeah. Eventually it becomes thanks for sharing.
Yeah. And how do you feel about moving away from, when I speak to you, I'm like, I really think about my words. I try to really think about my words in general, but I want to make sure that I'm really saying what I'm.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
What if I think a lot of people always ask me like, how do you deal with family members or someone really close to you that is just toxic? And how do you feel about really letting go with love and deep prayer, by the way? I mean, prayer is the vehicle that saves me from myself moment to moment.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think there's so many layers to even that question, right? Because I think without getting too esoteric, you know, we curate the events of our lives depending on what it is that we're here to discard, overcome, transcend. So family, particularly like biological blood, mum and dads and siblings, they can seem like the greatest catalyst for frustrations and being pissed off and suffering. And for good reason, right? Because there's this underlying obligation. It's a form of love that's not really, to me, chosen, right? It seems like, okay, well, you have to do it because it's your mum. You have to do it because it's your dad. And whenever there's this underlying form of mandating somebody's commitment, we're going to bulk against that because my assertion is we're free. So that's why with romantic relationships, usually, you know, I know it's still not the case, but it's a choice, right? You fall in love with someone and you choose to date and then get together and you live together, maybe get married, all the things. But with family, there's this under sort of written rule that, well, you just suck it up because it's your fucking mum, you know?
Yeah.
And so I always like to use the expression of lose mum and dad. And what that means is like the titles can never be fulfilled. There's no human being on the planet who could become the poster child for what it is to be the quintessential mum or dad. Nobody can. Yet that's the eyes through which a child will look at them. And if you start to see the disparity of the two, you start to recognize the injustice that is actually being perpetrated onto parents. Like, and you being one, you could probably relate to this, right? Like your kids are at the age where they're probably not having these sort of powerful discourses about, well, mum's such a fucking perfectionist. I feel like I can't do anything right.
No, they do. We have but we talk about all of it. They do. They call me, they say, not exactly like that.
Yeah. They don't use the F-bomb
No,
yet.
no. Well, sometimes, Benjamin. Be honest.
But you start to recognize that, you know, you're literally like educated, smart, done all the work, you know, you're taking care of yourself. You could argue that as parents go and as mothers goes, you're a pretty fucking good role model, right?
Yes.
And yeah, you're going to fall short. And you have to, because for them to go through whatever it is that they need to go through, you have to not provide some of the things that they're here to learn to develop for themselves. And so when you start to look through those lenses, you know, I was talking to someone in my mastermind literally on Saturday, module 2, and she came onto the Zoom. It's people from all around the world, over 37 countries, really moving at the myriad of stories. And she was lying in bed and she had a bowl next to her because she felt like she couldn't breathe. But she's like, I feel like I'm about to vomit. Like I feel like on the precipice of a breakthrough, but at the same time so discomforted because this is both confronting but powerful what we're going through, which is of course part of the journey. And so I came back to work with her and help her out, and it turned out that she grew up like a lot of kids in a very mercurial household where dad particularly was really sort of militant in his approach, right? So before dad came home and you heard the car pull into the drive, the kids had to suddenly make sure none of their stuff was around, right? Books on the table or, you know, shoes out, or like dad wanted the house to be a certain way. To an extreme, kids should be seen, not heard, and in this case, not even seen apparently, right? So here's this little girl who's now a grown-ass woman, 50-something, but still living in the absolute terror of, to go back to that brain that's anticipating worst case scenarios, she had learned that there were always consequences of her potentially doing something wrong. Now, if you superimpose that onto the human journey, which is we fuck up all the time, right? Yeah. Like we are designed to make mistakes and adapt and learn. But now she lives in a world where there's so much at stake for doing a mistake that she's in constant state of terror, right?
I can relate.
Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure, and from which she creates this feeling of couldn't breathe, right? Which is oppression, both physiologically, psychologically, and emotionally. They cascade into the physiology where she's feeling so discomforted. And so I took her through this whole sequence. I'm not going to go through the whole thing now, but to help her see that here she is sort of 30, 40 years since the events have since transpired and stopped, but she's still living as though she's incarcerated in this emotional prison where she can't do anything wrong, and fear of this, you know, worst case scenario constantly happening, which informs her current state of anxiety and terror. And anyway, cut to the chase, we got her to the other side of that, realized she's making that whole thing up. She's oblivious to the future. Like when people even say they're scared of the unknown, I'm like, no, you're not. You can't be. You can't be scared of the unknown. I get what you're pointing to, but again, the unknown is synonymous with the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I know we were going to meet, but I didn't know the contents of our conversation, right? And there's a beauty in that. But when it comes from the perspective of the ego, which is trying to survive, it's always trying to calculate and navigate what might happen.
Right.
So you're not scared of the unknown. You're scared of what your own brain is superimposing into the unknown as a possible worst case scenario.
Oh.
Right. And so when she really got that, she's like, holy shit, I'm creating my own terror. And I took her through an exercise to see, like, you know, this was a prank and da-da-da. And the point being, when she got to the other side of it, to answer your question, rather than seeing her dad as the, you know, the demon and the big boogie monster in her life, all she felt was so much compassion. Because I said, you were in prison until just now when you stepped out of it, realizing that you were creating your own invisible bars. But even though it looked like he was, and by no means do I condone his behavior, but he was the one suffering. Mm. And so she went from terror to gratitude, which is a pretty impressive leap to make, just sitting in bed with a puke bowl next to her, you know, where she recognized, wow. So getting rid of mom and dad, we took it to the fact that it was Jerry. Mm. Oh. And Jerry, if you knew from his genetics to his childhood to how he was treated by his parents, the language and the code and the conditioning that he had, through no fault of his own, you know, embodied, because that's all he knew growing up in a household where he was beat to shit, or he was reprimanded, or he was not wanted to be seen by his own dad. So then he continues that legacy. And so to sort of do that generational healing where she could not only find freedom for herself and complete joy and let go of her own sort of crazy making prison, but also to see that the apparent cause of her suffering was itself just another human being who was trapped. So, yeah, when you can look at it that way, and I'm not saying that's an easy leap to make just in that short space of time that I described it, but if you can realize that you're not a victim of anything, in fact, you're 100% responsible for all the events of your life, certainly the experience that you associate with them. And that's an empowering way of looking at it, because otherwise you're perpetually a victim.
Right.
And whether it's McDonald's has got their fucking coffee too hot and you have to sue them to mum said this and dad did this, whatever it is, there's always going to be something for which you can attribute blame to why you're not happy. And that's an exhausting way to live.
It's exhausting.
So get rid of mum and dad and look at Jerry and Sally. And they did the fucking best they could. And beyond that, in ways that you don't understand, and I know this is a bit of a leap for some people, you curated these actors in the play of your life because they were precisely what your soul needed to reflect where you're still living in a prison that you're here to emancipate yourself from.
I feel that fully.
Yeah.
I really do. And praying for someone's peace and really finding and you know, it's so interesting because hearing everything you're saying, I am like back in that room when I was in that state. And I remember looking at my husband because he's, you know, we've been together for 15 years. I don't think he's ever met that version of Melissa.
Oh, hello.
And I just looked at him and I'm like, you just have to, I have to go through this.
Yeah.
It's best I do it alone. Like,
you
take
might
the
want
kids.
to leave the room.
I am really, you know, I didn't really see it before as that I put myself there.
Yeah.
But now I do.
Okay, good.
Because when you're so in it, you are swallowed by your own emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And the process of it. I will say the thing that I was able to recognize immense growth was something like that would have destroyed the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
It would have rolled into this week and disrupted workflow.
Yeah.
And I gave myself an hour of destruction.
Yeah.
And then moved through the practice that helps me.
Beautiful.
breathe, because it really, you realize like you're not breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in fight or flight, that's not, something that you're like, it's not a necessity. It's like digesting. But the powerful thing that I want you to be able to see is like, it wasn't, and I think you know this intuitively, but I just want to reflect it as my commitment to you and your continual journey of growth and evolution and healing. It's like that event wasn't what created what you went through. It was what revealed that you've been carrying probably for decades.
Yes.
So it's sort of like what I call an emotional cancer, right? It's something that's been sitting dormant underneath the surface that eventually could have manifested. So again, we get to recontextualize the whole event of like, okay, it seems like you want to rip this person to shreds, but actually they were like sort of this divine scalpel, that came into your life that's discomforting to feel. You're not under any anesthetic and you're being ripped open, but really it's to remove something that's toxic within you that you've been carrying. And so when you can again start to reframe things, it's like, holy shit, like but only always, am the catalyst of my own suffering, and everybody else is just the excuse to reveal it. And then it's like, then you really start to step into a whole new world of just humility and surrender and compassion. Because one of my favorite lines in the Yoga Sutras, they say that when you have these moments of healing or awakening, all future suffering is removed. Which, it gives me tingles, because when you really get that on the timeline of somebody's like perceived life, and I talk about linear progression versus vertical ascension. So my work is about vertical ascension, which I know starts to sound very heady, but most people are going from past through present to future. That's it. Like, I hope to move from a smaller apartment to a townhouse, and then I might meet someone, we'll combine incomes and we can get a little house, and then we'll go into the suburb, and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you're fancy and you have a house in the Hamptons and whatever.
Sounds familiar.
And that's linear progression, right? And it's sort of a process of improvement. But you're typically still carrying underneath in these dormant forms, these energetic signatures of survival. So where I assert you went through is a moment of vertical ascension. So in a time that was discomforting, there was a transformation. Right, there's this transfiguration, there was this heat, the frustration, heat being the sort of catalyst for this metamorphosis, right? You take a block of ice, you bring heat to it, it's going to melt into water. It transforms the manifest world. And then you bring more heat, it becomes steam, right? So really that person was, for me, what I'm reading into this without knowing the details is energetically was a catalyst for you to transfigure something that you were carrying that had a ticking time bomb in your future.
That's it.
And when you see that, it sort of dissipates all of the charge. It's like, holy shit. Again, it's not that you have to send them a bunch of flowers and a thank you card, although that's still appropriate. Too soon.
That's too soon. We'll work through that one.
But if you recognize that you're here for your own emancipation, and so for whatever reasons, you had some underlying ticking time bomb emotionally, psychologically, physiologically, and this was the catalyst that brought it to the surface, and you had this eruption, that whatever was predictable, the probable future with that underlying unresolved trauma would have, you're healthy as hell and you take good care of yourself, so maybe it would have taken 2 or 3 decades, but then all of a sudden you've got this weird sort of symptom that's showing up that you can't explain. Again, I know this is taking a lot for people to perhaps track this, but you get it, right?
I get it. I think a lot of people are going to get it.
Yeah, okay, good. So the energetic sort of reconciliation.
It manifests.
And it builds and this accumulates. And through Ayurveda, part of my work, right, we have something called samprapti, which is the 6 stages of disease. So there's 6 steps that create ultimately the manifestation of a diversified form of sickness in the body. But it starts with the subtle accumulation of an imbalance. That's stage 1. And so people are walking bundles of accumulation. In lay terms, we call it baggage. Oh, they got a lot of baggage, right? But what is baggage? Is something that you're carrying. So really, this whole thing that transpired to me is such a beautiful way that you got to let go of something that you perhaps unconsciously were carrying, the weight of which, both energetically, physiologically, emotionally, and certainly in terms of your own journey, has to manifest eventually in the physiology. And so that just got erased.
It did.
That at least that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, same. I am too. I feel like I can hear, like, if I were going to ask listeners a question right now, okay, so you are in this space, right? And then something happens and an eruption happens again. I'd love to know from your perspective, like, what is a step? Like, what is something someone can do
Right.
in the moment? Because I think that that's the most challenging thing, right? Is like right when you're in it.
Yeah.
What is that first step that you recommend someone to take?
It might seem counterintuitive, but I think when you're in it, you just have to feel it, right? So there's something to be said, like if a gazelle is being chased by a lion for a few minutes at a time and eventually breaks free, it will go through this sort of dissipating of the sympathetic response, right? It will shake, which is its way of getting rid of all the adrenaline and cortisol, norepinephrine in its system, right? Because it's no longer in danger, and so it can relax, and then it goes back to just grazing. Most humans don't do that. They just went through whatever they went through. They had an argument, they had a disagreement, they got some bad news, they were fired, whatever. And so it just they hold on to it, and then that just adds, like in a sort of very sticky way, to whatever previous traumas are still there that are unresolved. So when you're in it, there's something to be said by feeling. I think what you did was beautiful in terms of you didn't dismiss the feeling, you didn't deny the feeling, you just mitigated any kind of ramifications by lashing out, right? You stayed in the safe, cushy cell of your own straitjacket mindset, and
I did.
you told the husband to get the fuck out of here before.
You don't want to fucking see this.
And, so you had the experience, which I think is powerful, if you can do it in a safe container. But it's not always easy. It's like asking somebody who's had 15 shots of tequila to just be sober. It's like, it's going to take a minute for that to come out of your bloodstream, right? So I think when you're in a state, to the best of your ability, experience the state, but if possible, without any kind of consequences to other people or yourself, right? The real powerful work then happens once you start to dissipate, the reaction. Because when you're in a state, typically you become unconscious. You're no longer present. You don't have rational thinking. You're in a state of fight or flight. It's usually some residual trauma. And all you know to do is to try and protect yourself, right? You're not thinking clearly. There's no rational thinking or critical thinking in that state. So you have to let it dissipate. So rather than putting pressure on yourself to mitigate it immediately, you want to be able to, I'm human. You could simply ask the question I posed earlier, is this life-threatening? Chances are it's always a no. Sometimes, yes, right? Sadly, for some people, it could be, depending on what they're going through. But typically, no. So then it is ego-threatening. Okay, good. Yeah. That's good. If it's just ego-threatening, I still feel fucking angry. I'm pissed. I'm sad. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. But there's something going on at a deeper level. So once we can allow that, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 hours, to sort of just start to soften, then I would typically, if you've got a safe person you can speak to, it's always great to do reflection. If you don't, you can take a journal or a pen and a paper, and you can start to break down as best as you can objectively what transpired. So person A said da-da-da, or person B did this, or this is what happened in the world, and as a result, I felt X, right? And so then we want to be able to look at, okay, what's the underlying perceived threat from that? Right. So I'll come back to that, like jokingly with some of my clients that I've worked with for a while. I can be a bit of a smart ass, because that's part of the evolution where I'm not going to mollycoddle people after a while.
Yeah, you don't, by the way.
No, I just like to...
You say it like it is.
Tough love, but it's love nonetheless. So if I've worked with someone for a while and I feel that we've gotten to the liberty of where I can just be, a little bit straight with them, and they'll like get on the phone and, this happened, and then there's the work, and this person, and then my mom, and this, and then my wife, and then the kid. And they're telling me the story of 15, 20 minutes of all the things that transpired. And I'm obviously pride myself on listening, as you know. And so I could probably verbatim almost repeat everything that they've said. And so when they're finally done, I'm like, okay, how much I take pride in making sure that I really get you and what you've been through. Can I reflect to you what you just said? And they're like, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, so some shit happened. They're like, you're such a fucking asshole. I just want to make sure I got it right. So a lot of shit happened. Is that it? It's like, so really... And so, that's it, right? Like stuff happens.
Yeah.
And that's life, And so it's just the way that we react to it, respond to it, and how we interpret it. So coming back to whatever's transpired, with all due love and compassion, something happened at the end of the day. You went through something, somebody said something, you heard something. Typically, sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt me. But yeah, words are hurting people all day.
Right.
So when you can look at that, okay, they said X, they did X. And it's not even a conscious choice. So what did my brain automatically make that mean? They don't love me. They don't care. I did something wrong. I'm worthless. I'm not loved. I'm not going to be okay. It's something in usually those realms, right? Where it's usually a negation of something, of myself, or especially if it's in the realm of fear, there's a anticipation of like, it's not going to work out. I'm going to get fired. They're going to leave me. They're taking my kids. There's a custody battle. It's some perceived worst case scenario of a future where the default setting of the brain is, I'm not going to be okay.
Right.
Is how we interpret it. It's not like, oh, it's all going to work out great. That's not the default, right? So then we can, if you are able to reverse engineer and look at, okay, something happened. How did that make me feel? What is the underlying narrative about that? What is the real fear? And write that down. And if you can, it's usually I'm not something. Like I'm not wanted. I'm not safe. They do not care. I'm not loved. Then we can start to, as I say, investigate the validity of that particular perspective. So is it an absolute truth that they don't care? No. But where did I feel that before? Where can I then sort of recall events from my childhood where that was a consistent theme in my life, right? So when somebody's in a relationship as mature adults and the husband raises his voice and the woman's like, I've got anxiety and now I'm taking some sort of pills and it's been going on for a while. But really, if I were to look at that, what are you saying? Well, I don't know. I just don't feel safe around him. Okay. So, but yeah, you married the person or you moved in with them so that you saw something, but where else did you not feel safe? Well, I mean, as a kid, I always didn't feel safe. My dad would get drunk and raise his voice. I saw him hit my mom. Now you can start to see that's been there for 30, 40 years.
Right.
It just hasn't been reconciled where you've realized, oh, I'm the one creating the world of not safe. Not to in any way dismiss the fact that maybe the husband is a little bit abusive or raises his voice. It's not fun, but I'm not safe. That's the way I'm interpreting. And if I'm living in that energetic signature of thinking I'm not safe because that's what I've become accustomed to, I'm going to attract circumstances and people to continue that dialogue. So it's justified, and that's where we get to be right, the self-fulfilling prophecy. If who I am is that I'm not special, I'm not loved, I'm not safe, I'm not going to be okay, then just through the laws of manifestation, you curate events to consistently reinforce that perspective. So basically, we are the ones generating, when people say, I want to manifest, I'm like, no, that's all you're doing. Is like where you're manifesting from is your blind spots. It's the subconscious programming that you got conditioned through the first 7 to 15 years of your life. And now you're a 45-year-old, 50. Why can't you make more money? Why can't you get rid of this sickness? Why can't you find love? Well, because you're still living within the same energetic parameters that became your home emotionally and psychologically that you were in as a child. And you have to, therefore, attract the same circumstances because ultimately the primordial imperative of the ego is to be right. See, I told you that was too good to be true. When we get a glimpse of a possibility that actually resonates with the true heart and soul of who we are, but it will get squashed because the ego wants to be right about, no, I can't do that, whatever it is. Like, wait, a man really loves me and really adores me and I can feel really safe? No, that's super uncomfortable. What I do know is how to be abused. It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh my God, Peter. Holy shit. You really are one of the greats. It's unbelievable. It's just...
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard to... It's hard.
It is.
To accept it and to own it.
Yeah. But that's why I said earlier, you're either a victim or you're 100% responsible. It's just most people don't want to be the latter. Because with that, there comes immense power, but that's the only access to freedom. And responsibility in a way that's got nothing to do with fault or blame because they're so slippery. When people think of the word responsibility, they hear the that most kids hear, which is you're wrong, you're bad, it's your fault, and there's a sense of guilt and shame. And that tends to be the foundation. Some of the predominant pillars of an ego is built in guilt and shame, because which kid doesn't hear, don't do that, you did that wrong, you're bad, why didn't you get an A? Like, why did you only get 3 out of 5 bats at baseball? Why did you not make the team? Why, and it's sad, but the way that children hear that is that I'm insufficient. And that's when children learn to abandon themselves. And that's the primordial wound that we all start with. There's this sort of unwritten agreement between kids and parents, which is, I'll be who I think, and that's the responsibility. They don't see it that way. They really think as a kid, I'll be who you want me to be. But it's who the child thinks the parents want them to be. And we abandon ourselves at that moment, very young. And that's the start of the personality and the identity. And so to come back to that and to sort of, repair that illusory disconnection. You never really disconnect with your true essence or your true soul. But to start to, recognize, wow, at some point I decided that being me wasn't enough. And I don't know any human being who didn't at some point make that agreement with themselves. Yeah.
So sad.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. And then people do everything they can to cope and strategize. And for a woman, it's in the realm of sex and beauty and hair and boobs and makeup and clothes. And for a guy, it's performance and money and speed and strength and cars. They're stereotypes. But you can just see how insidious it is. And it's so normalized that we think it's just human, but it's exhausting and obviously moving, right? And you can see it. Like what touches you there? Is it for yourself, for your kids, for friends?
I think just thinking about an innocent child.
Yeah.
Growing up thinking that is...
That being them isn't enough.
I mean, I felt that way, so...
Yeah. Yeah, and I would assert that it's a few years of the accumulation of that feeling that got triggered when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
It's like that was the one moment where the straw that broke the camel's back of, I've just had enough of being told that I'm not enough.
Yes.
And that's why I said it was a gift, because you were the one carrying the sort of as yet to sort of explode, time bomb.
Yes.
And for that reason, you can step into, and there's no surprise when you were saying at the beginning, feeling like you're just done, with and that to me is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Okay, I'm done with the toxicity of other people. It's a little bit sort of too fresh.
Totally. And I feel that.
Yeah.
And it comes from hate and anger.
Yes.
And I mean, I will say a huge part of my practice is in the sending love and really truly finding just the seed of empathy and compassion for I think it really hits home when you say to strip away. I'm going to cry again.
Okay. It's okay. It's beautiful. It's okay. I wish I had a tissue to give you, but...
Just, oh God.
It's okay. This is good. This is, don't resist it. I know this is your show, but this is beautiful. There's something here for you to really let go of.
Yeah. To strip away mom and dad.
Yeah.
And to just look at the human underneath it.
Yeah, it's totally inappropriate. It's okay. Viewers got to see my ass.
I love that. This is my, I thought about this when Ava and I were prepping these cards, and I was like, plus coming back and after the summer of not sitting with anyone, I'm like, this is freedom. I don't fucking need the cards.
Exactly.
Follow your intuition, because just as you said, you really had no idea what. Neither did I.
No.
And I just like the truth to come out. And I didn't want to talk about any of this with you at all. This was the last thing that I wanted to talk about because it's so exposing.
Yeah. But for that reason, it's so liberating.
Yeah.
And I know it seems counterintuitive, but like this is one of the most beautiful versions of you I've ever seen. Like as pristinely as you're always put together and beautiful, and you take such immaculate care of yourself and the way you dress, and you're such a beautiful woman. But this to me is like, this is where the real treasure lies. Right? Because this is about as authentic as it gets.
Yeah.
And I guarantee there's not a listener right now who either isn't crying with you or loving you unconditionally. And I hope for themselves having maybe a little bit of release and some healing simultaneously.
Yes. That's what you do for people.
Yeah. And turn them into a complete fucking mess. You're welcome.
It's in the mess that you, I think, are able to really start being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, like it's, we're all designed, unfortunately, through the means of trying to protect, to want to be loved and accepted. It's innocent. It's at one level, adorable, because we just hope that other people love and accept us. But in that whole process, we deny the fact that what's really going on is that we don't fundamentally love and accept ourselves. And that's why you could have a room filled with people in like tuxedos and beautiful ball gowns wearing Cartier and fancy shit, and you throw a 4-year-old in the mix and running around who's just spilling shit, and they've got fucking smoothie up their face and they're calling people fat. And, that's who you want to be, right? So that's why I always say, what interests me is the truth.
I think that's why you've attracted Lauren into your life, because she's a
child
truth teller.
You could say
she's next. No, she's a truth teller.
Yeah,
she tells the truth.
Yeah, at times. Times she's got the 15 shots of tequila in her, and it's pure fucking reaction.
Listen, it's the process.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful. I still want to hear just what was on the back of that, because obviously I just can't help myself as a man and come over and hold you. But like you were going to share something that also came to mind there when you said, I'm going to cry again.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's the releasing of the titles.
Yeah.
And how that immediately just, it's like almost like the walls crumble.
Yeah.
And you're able to look at something from like its purest form.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a parent like you, and I'm sure many of your listeners are, I remember there was someone I'd helped who was like the quintessential mother, almost to the point of like their kids lived a 5-star life, like she did okay and had some resources, but it was really the way she showed up with so much love and so much kindness. And there was one morning and I'd showed, she was just exhausted and at times obviously felt rightly so frustrated, but knew they're just kids. But it's like, at what point do I get a fucking break? Or, and she shared one morning, that she'd made breakfast for her son, and he said, well, Mum, I don't like this. So, of course, being Mum, she made another gourmet breakfast, right? And that also wasn't quite to his liking. And it wasn't like he was a snooty, snobby kid. It was just, he was just being a kid, and I don't like it.
Right.
Just telling the way it is.
Sounds familiar. Keep going.
And it just happened to be, that catalyst for her to lose it, and she went over and said, sometimes I just want to be Lisa. I don't want to be Mum. And she was bawling. And she said she'd never had such a expression of love from her kids, because they don't see that, right? Because you're too busy having this perfected persona that's creating this like Ritz-Carlton experience for the kids every day. It's like, they don't know that underneath it, you're a fucking wreck and you've got all sorts of other shit going on, And yet, obviously there's certain things you don't share with your kids, but I think there's something beautiful about that transparency, about the authenticity of having those conversations age appropriate, where it's like, I'm human, doing the best I can and sharing, what you're dealing with too, not to put the onus on the children, of course, but I think they can be overly mollycoddled and protected that they don't understand, what it is that everyone's dealing with. So to strip away those labels, to remove all the expectations, and just to be transparent and honest. As I said, what interests me is the truth. Lying is boring. Everybody does that.
So good. Wow.
Yeah.
Where can everyone work with you? You have your online courses.
Yeah.
I know
there's
people are going to
obviously the dizzy heights of Instagram and all of that, which is fun. And I put a ton of content out to help. But if people want to go a little deeper, they can join my Freedom membership, which is super affordable, has courses on anxiety, relationships, depression, financial freedom, Ayurveda, and there's over 100 hours. It's got all my live events that I do. It's all recorded.
Oh, you share those too?
They're all in there. Just, dizzy height of $29 a month. But if you really want to go deeper, free your mind, and certainly for those people who want to learn more about themselves and the mechanics of what it is to be a human trying to survive, and maybe even pass that on to your kids or families, or if you're coaches or teachers or nutritionists, then that's my mastermind, which is a 3-month program, all of which can be found on my website, petercrone.com.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's just, I feel like there's so much out there, and it's so powerful, and it's such a breath of fresh air to have people in this space that really care.
Yeah.
And really want people to experience, what it feels like to be free.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know in my bouts of it, watch out. I can feel this energy of when you set yourself free, that is when you fly.
To me, it's the whole reason we're here. That's the only game that I'm interested in, the game of accumulation and amassing and fame and money and riches. And that's great. That's fine. That can be included. But if you don't get the real purpose of what it is to be human, which to me is to liberate the souls we are, then you're only going to perpetuate suffering, and that ain't much fun.
No. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you. You're such a sweetheart, and for literally revealing your soul.
I did. But it feels good. It's liberating.
You look a lot lighter. And
I was holding it.
Yeah.
I was I came in, the only thing I was do not go there today.
Oops.
I was you just keep it in, girl. And this, I think when you are, I think, for me, the only quest is truth.
Yeah.
That's it. And when you really want to be that energy, you can't hold things in. It just doesn't work.
No, and it's really, for me, it's an honor, right? Because as we started the conversation, when people are going through that, or to want to be able to access this freedom, what do you need? And I said the first step is safety. So I'm glad, even if it wasn't conscious, that despite your efforts to resist and to withhold, that I provided sufficient safety so you could explode as graciously as you did.
You did, and you do. That's what you do. So, thank you.
Love you.
Love you. Lauren, you're next, girl. Give this one a mic.